Hey, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to Recruiting Insight. This is the place to be if you want to connect with the most successful recruiters and hiring managers and innovators in the real estate industry. Hey, it's a great day to recruit, and I'm super excited to introduce you to our guest today, VANESSA MOUTON. Vanessa is the managing broker of Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices office in the Cary, Morrisville region of North Carolina. Now, she's been making a bunch of noise in the real estate industry for about the last 18 years. She initially established her career as a high-performing independent agent, and then later co-founded the Triangle's Real Estate Chix team, one of the most successful real estate teams in Central North Carolina. Prior to real estate, she worked as a marketing and advertising professional for more than 14 years where she specialized in small business marketing. Now, all of this experience has led her to the work that she's doing today, leading and growing a group of amazing agents who she's inspiring to do their best work every day. She recently told me that she loves her new position. She's been in for 10 months now because it enables her to give and to do the work that is the best version of herself every day. Well, Vanessa, thanks so much for joining us today. I know a lot of our listeners are going to be super excited to hear your story. Now, I don't want to spend too much time in your background. I want to just jump right into the position that you took 10 months ago, because there's so many of the listeners that are in your spot right now. They were in an office. They need to be a great managing broker, but they also need to be a great hiring manager. So you can tell me a little about your current position and why you took this spot 10 months ago?
Absolutely. And thanks for having me. So 10 months ago, I made the leap to leadership. And after being in the field for quite a while and feeling what the agents are feeling in this market. And the quick version of the story is that I knew I would go back to coaching or leadership at some point in my career. And the stars aligned, and I felt like I was making a big difference with my clients, but could I be doing more helping agents in this tough market? And so I came over here, and that's what I'm doing. And it's been remarkable. It's been a remarkable journey.
So when you got there, can you tell us a little about the condition of the office and what did you kind of step into when you first started?
Stepped into a kind of a hard spot. Obviously, the market was tough already and just super busy. But we also had some sadness going on. A colleague that was passing away, and so we were kind of recovering from PTSD of pandemic, plus going through the loss of a dear colleague. So those first couple of months were super bumpy, as you remember coaching me. And but we got through it together, and in that process, really bonded as a family. I guess we'll go ahead and call it that, as a family. And so we had some cleaning up to do, some freshening up, some painting, some clearing out of things. And one thing that I did that I didn't know was a psychological thing was bringing in greenery. I love greenery, as you can see in my office. And so I brought in artificial greenery throughout the office, as well as the front door, and found out after the fact that, greenery is supposed to be calming.
Oh, there you go.
I'm like, I didn't even know that. So that was some little touches, but it's been a journey. The first few months were the bumpiest, just because we had other emotional things going on too.
Yeah, absolutely. So you almost started it like, hey, we're going to start something new here.
Yeah.
So what were some of the goals? What were some of the goals that you set in place, and how did recruiting play into those goals?
Okay, so the number one goal when I walked in the door in the very first sales meeting that I had with the crew, day two, I guess technically, was to focus on the agents that were already here. Retention was my number one priority, and I said as much to them. And my boss was with us at the time, and I pointed to him and I said, I know he wants me to recruit, but I want you to understand you are my number one focus right now, and then we will start recruiting. But I want to make sure that who we recruit, who we attract, is a match for our culture, because I knew what this culture was about once upon a time, because I was an agent here before.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I know a little bit of the story. So obviously, you're very successful at retaining, almost everyone that's in the office, and you did a great job of that. And of course, retention always helps when you want to
Yes.
start recruiting. So you didn't wait too long. You only waited a couple months there before you really started hitting the ground running on recruiting. And you had some pretty remarkable success. Just from our discussion beforehand, you've hired 7 experienced agents in your 10 months as there that accounted for 27 million in production. Mm-hmm. So averaging 4 million in production. So I think a lot of people listening to this, are really in the trenches when it comes to experienced agent recruiting. And when they see someone that's new in a position who can gain that much traction quickly, it's pretty remarkable. So let's delve into that a little bit. What about your value proposition has allowed you to really recruit that successfully that quickly?
Well, we have a lot of talented agents in this office to begin with. So that is very important to align whoever's coming in with that. So I have been very diligent in not only explaining to my own agents, but anyone that I interview, that we have a couple of things that we need out of an agent coming on board. They need to be full-time in the business. They can't be working part-time or full-time somewhere else. And they preferably, if they're going to be a brand new agent, that they've lived here more than 2 years to have a sphere of influence that's big enough to tap into. In fact, based on your 15-minute recommendation of a pre-interview Zoom, I have done that effectively since January, and I have not hired 10 agents on purpose and saved 45 minutes each time because of that pre-interview. And so that's been for the new agent population. But then the agents that are experienced, the number one reason I think I'm having so much success with that, attracting them, is two reasons. So I guess it's 2 reasons. My in-house agents are doing recruiting, right, because they're talking about the office and the culture. And then my relationships in the business. I've been in this market for 14 years, and relationships is so important to me, which I think, social media, I stay in touch with people. I'm very intentional. So I'm not dialing, 10 times a week, but I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. I'm on TikTok. I'm on TikTok.
You're on TikTok. That's pretty impressive.
Right.
My daughters will be very impressed, I'm sure.
Yes, my 12-year-old cringes when he sees my video.
Okay, well, let's delve in that a little more. I want to hit on that because I think when it comes, there's a lot of different ways to recruit, and even we learned last week, just having a good routine is certainly important when it comes to this. But there seems to be a little magic that you have here, and I just want to kind of delve into that a little bit because there's a promotional side to recruiting, and there's an attraction side, and of course, if we can attract, that's even better, right? And it's easier. Not that what you're doing is easy, but I mean the process for the prospect and for you once you're in the process is easier. So, what are some of the techniques? How do you build this attraction? What are some of the things you've been doing that you find success with?
I really think it's important. The same thing as when I was in the field, staying visible, staying present. And social media allows me to do that, whether I'm commenting on somebody's newest listing or their staging or their football game or baseball game, whatever it is, I'm staying relevant in the conversation online, which I think is huge and a missed opportunity for many people if they're not online, because everybody has a love-hate relationship with social media. I do too. But I've realized that if I'm not there, they don't know I'm around and they don't hear my story. A couple days ago, I was on a conference call in the conference room, and one of my newest agents who, oh my gosh, she's a great cook. She's always bringing me food. She brought me a plate with a water bottle right in the middle of the call. And she's like, "You need to eat lunch." So I put that on Facebook because that's our culture, right? So we're talking about our culture. But I think being present out there, and I've gotten the advice from a very seasoned broker in charge that I respect immensely, that she recommends being involved in organizations as well. And I see the value, but I see more value in what I'm doing personally for me on social media because I'm able to stay connected. And the best story, can I tell the story about the bourbon?
You can. That's amazing story.
I haven't done it yet. I'm doing it this week.
Okay.
Was when the one agent that I really I'm nurturing along had posted a photo of a gift that a client had given him, and it was like this pancake mix and some other things and a syrup bottle that looked like a Woodford Reserve bourbon bottle.
Okay.
So I commented on it and I said, wow, that's a really sweet client. I said, but I thought that was a bottle of bourbon. And he said, well, that would have been an amazing gift. So I'm going to send him a bottle of Woodford Reserve as a little joke, but to just deepen the connection. And that's the thing with social media. You know, Ninja, we practice Ninja here, and they talk about being intentional and going out and seeing the pain and pleasure. I follow through beyond the post and the comment. I might pick up the phone and call or text or, you know, just take it a little further.
Yeah. So let's hit on that a little bit. So how much time would you say you spend on an average day, let's say, on social media? I'm not saying
15, 20 minutes.
20 minutes a day. Okay. So you're spending 20 minutes a day, intentional sort of time.
Yep.
And I do know, because we've talked about it, that there are, when you see something on social media, you do pick up the phone or you do direct message the person or you do connect with them at a deeper level or you do comment. So there's certain, it seems like you're pretty strategic about how you connect in addition to social media. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It's not as planned as it sounds, but it's just in my nature that's how I operate. And I think it's because I'm so relationship driven.
It's really, yeah, I think it is. And I think you have a talent there that's that you're very high on the scale with. But there's also a lot of other people that have that talent, but I don't think they don't utilize it.
Right.
And
well, I think I've told you before that I really I found the connection from the field to being a managing broker, that it's no different than being in a listing presentation or a buyer consultation when you're trying to establish that trust, the know, like, and trust factor.
Right.
You have to be prepared and you have to stay in touch.
Yeah, I'm starting to hear that more and more with the highest producing recruiters or that recruiting role that you have, that there is a connection between what you did as an agent when it comes to listing appointments and prospecting and really getting that work done versus what actually happens in recruiting.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you're well equipped in that sense. So even stepping into the position, re-stepping into it, I guess maybe is a way to say it. You were pretty well equipped because you just come out of the field for what, 6-7 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Almost 7 years. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, another thing I think that I've noticed you're really good at is leveraging some of these long-term relationships. So you've built in this market for quite a while. What are some of the things you're doing to leverage those long-term relationships? How do you connect with people that you've known for a long time and get them into not necessarily a recruiting discussion, but at least you're talking to them?
You know, what's interesting is that I haven't changed much of what I was doing in the field because when I had a co-broke situation in the field and I really connected or gelled with an agent, they became part of my sphere, even though we were competing agents. Okay. So I can tell you, 2 of the people that are in my office that are experienced that came over, I was having coffee or lunch with them once or twice a year already prior to taking this role, because we connected and we enjoyed each other's company. In fact, one of them, we would go kayaking together, and we're going next week, actually, because it was a common interest. So I think, I keep saying relationships. It's that I like to stay in touch with people that I mesh with, I guess. Right. And so but then also my vendor relationships have turned into some leads. One of my great agents that joined me in January came to me because of our mutual closing coordinator that we worked with. She was getting ready to go to one of 2 other companies and pulled the plug and said, Kelly, I'm not feeling it. Who should I talk to? And her words exactly were, go talk to Vanessa. She's shaking things up at that Cary office. And the best part of that story is she calls me on December 29th and I'm on PTO. Yeah. And I pick up the phone and I know who Tracy Santrock is. Trust me, I know who that is. And because I had a deal or 2 with her before. And she's telling me the story that she has to move in 2 days or 3 days. She's done 17 years. She's got to make a change. So I said, I'll meet you at 1:00 at the office on my day off, because that's a listing appointment. That's how you react to listing appointments. You strike while the iron's hot. And she signed the dotted line the next morning.
Wow. Wow. That's a great story. So, well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about retention. So we kind of we kind of hit on that on the first part of the discussion. What's very common is when there's a broker change, or there's you guys call them BICs in North Carolina. When you have a manager change, then there's often a lot of disruption that's going on. It's a time where an office is most vulnerable. So how did you keep from that happening with your situation? What were some of the tactics you used to retain people you want to keep?
We might have been in a little bit different situation because I was brought on to change the direction of the office.
Okay.
So in terms of growth, and so that helped. But I had 2 agents within the first few weeks who did let me know that they were considering changing, and but they were going to give me a shot. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, again, had relationships prior to being here, and one of them had her best year yet by the end of December, and she's had her best quarter yet. She's already done about $4 million this quarter, the first quarter.
Wow! And
she was going to retire last summer. And then the other gentleman, one of my favorite, he's just a great agent and a great person, favorite human beings. He's just a great person. He's had a great year too. And but I brought in, I guess the question you're asking is, what did I do? Well, the first thing I did, and I recommend this to any managing broker starting out at a new company or a new office, I went to lunch or breakfast with every single one of them, one at a time. Okay. Because I wanted to understand, where were they in their business? Were they in the phasing out? Were they trying to amp up? Were they, I just have my license hanging there because I have a full-time job somewhere else? I needed to understand so that I knew where to meet them in their development. So that was huge. I think people find that you're vested. They see that you're interested. And right now, I think post-pandemic, people just want to be seen and heard.
Yeah. No, that's a great takeaway right there. I think there's something that almost anybody can apply right away. So one of the things we've talked about in our relationship over the last few months, you're focused on building a high performing office. And so by nature, there's sometimes people aren't a fit to that culture. There's some organic, some people have some changes in their life, or maybe they aren't that full-time model. How do you handle that? How do you handle voting some people out?
I'm facing that pretty intently right now because I'm assessing since I'm making the rule for myself that I'm not going to consider a candidate if they are full-time or part-time somewhere, or they have less than 2 years in this market. Now I'm having to shift that gaze onto my own roster and decide, how does that look and what do I need to do here? And so today I had a fairly not difficult, but awkward conversation with someone who I inherited and working full-time somewhere else. And a few months ago when I met with him, he said, I'm going to let that go in June, or I'm going to stay the course and just keep my license hanging. So, okay, well, I need to know that answer now. So I said, the 2 options that I really need you to look at this point is either leave that job and dive in full-time to real estate, so that I know that you are fully committed to this business, because I'm investing in you. So I expect you to invest in your own business. Or 2, partner up with someone internally so that person can stay on top of the paperwork and the knowledge that you need to represent buyers and sellers. Right. Because that's the liability. Agents that are not producing or are simply hanging their license with your company on the off chance that they're going to write 1 or 2 offers a year, they're a huge liability. Right. Because they don't know the contract, they don't know the rules, they don't know the nuances. And so are they really the best representation for a client? So I explained that to him and he got it. And so the ultimatum is one of those 2 choices, or find a brokerage that will meet your needs, because we're not the place for you if that's the case. Right.
And I think that's also, there's a legal liability that's associated, but I think there's a liability to culture too. If you're trying to build this high performing, and we got some people that just aren't bought in or aren't going to do this, it really distracts from that.
Well, and I see it in my existing agents. I have agents that have been here 15, 20 years, And of course, the phone's going to ring. I turned it to airplane mode, but the other one rang.
There you go.
The seasoned agents are seeing the caliber of the agents I'm bringing in, even the brand new ones. I have a brand new one she's been licensed 5 months. She went to EXP first, then she came here.
Yeah.
And 45 days after she got here, she closed 2 transactions, 1.7 million.
Wow.
And then she's 23.
Yeah.
And they all love her because she's smart, and they tap her on the shoulder. Can you do an open house for me? Can you go show a house? And she's just loving it because she's seen and heard and learning the business.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, as we wrap up today, if you were, let's go back to earlier in your career. Let's suppose that you were a less seasoned manager and a less seasoned agent. What if you were taking over an office new, or maybe we have a lot of teams and we have a lot of people that are just kind of starting this recruiting process. If someone's got 2 or 3 agents and they're trying to get things rolling, what would be some of the things that you did? What would do to kind of get things, go from the 2 to 10 sort of thing?
I've had some very good conversations around that recently with teams, especially is defining the roles, defining the tasks so that you manage expectations and get ahead of them. Because when you have teams that are trying to grow, I had a conversation with an agent in Greensboro, actually, from my former broker in charge, my Winston-Salem days.
Yeah.
And her question was very specific about that growth. And I said, listen, you need to look at what is it that you need, spell that out, and then ask the person you're inviting, what do they need, spell it out, and see where it syncs. Because if it doesn't sync, it's a recipe for failure. Because how often do we see teams add a team member and the team member thinks, oh, I'm going to get all these leads, and the team leader thinks I'm going to get all this help, and neither happens.
Right.
And then the team member moves on. Same thing happens at the brokerage level. Explain what your value proposition is. If you don't know what it is, and listen, I speak from experience here. Ben is my first coach. You're my first coach, right? And in the early days, we were defining my value proposition. We were trying to define my ideal candidate. It was really hard at first because I didn't know what that looked like yet. And it varies by office, right? I can't walk into a huge 120 person office and say, oh, I'm only going to have top producers.
Right.
That's suicidal.
Right.
You'd have to fire, over half of the people.
Yeah.
But so you have to take stock, read the room. Number 1, read the room. And 2, make a plan and follow the plan. One of the things I mentioned to you a couple days ago, I treat all of my sales meetings as if they were a listing presentation. I prep for those suckers as if it was a listing presentation, and it is not a minute wasted because I remember what it was like being an agent. So I think the best managers are people that were agents personally because they know what the pain points are.
Yeah.
But I think having a plan, and if you don't have a plan or don't have a training program of any sort, go visit other offices and see how they run their meetings, and go talk to other managers and, just ask a lot of questions. I did the first time.
Yeah, I know. That is so helpful. That this, to hear all the things that you're actually talking about, and I've learned a lot today, just on even though we spent some time together in our coaching relationship. So thank you so much for sharing everything that you've been able to put together, and I'm excited about the next year. I think you're just starting.
I'm just getting started. That's my
exactly. Well, and now for those of you that are doing the hard work of recruiting every single day, hope you take what you learned today and go make a difference.